I want to give a huge thanks to PTCGO Store for sponsoring the channel. PTCGO Store is a great site where you can get online Pokemon trading card game codes for some of the best prices. Now able to order Sword and Shield Rebel Clash codes. Be sure to use code CHIP5 at checkout in order to get 5% off your order, or click the link in my description down below. Once again, that is code CHIP5 to get yourself 5% off your order. Thanks, PTCGO Store. What is going on, guys? Chip here. Welcome back to another Pokemon TCG video, where today we are going to be taking a look at the decks that made top 8 at the recent Limitless Qualifier number 4 tournament this past weekend. Now, this event was over 1,500 registered players, so it is extremely tough in order to make it into the top 8 of an event like this. So massive kudos, massive congrats to those players that were able to make that happen. Like I said, there was 1,500 registered players and 20 total rounds of Swiss played in a 2-day format. 13 rounds played on day 1 in best of 1, and if you were able to make a record of 9-4 or better, you advanced onto the second day of play. The second day of play was 7 more rounds, also best of 1, and at the end of the day, the players who had the best record overall made it into the top 8. You needed to have a record of at least 16-4 to have a chance at top 8 cut. And even still, there were multiple players that had a 16-4 record that did not make it into cut due to tiebreaker resistance. So this tournament was incredibly difficult to make top 8 at. So congrats to the players who were able to make it happen. Now, I definitely have to give a big shout out to PokeStats over on Twitter for the graphic here I'm going to be referencing. I'm going to be leaving a link to this down in the description. Definitely go drop PokeStats a follow over there. And I'm also going to be referencing the Limitless stats from the Limitless website. So I'll be linking that in the description as well. Shout outs to those folks for the fine work that they do and bringing us all of this information. But as you can see here, the top 8 broke down pretty diversely, I would say. Overall, there were 3 combozation decks. We'll explain kind of what combozation means if you're not familiar with what this deck's strategy is here shortly. Also, 2 Pikachu and Zekrom decks. Andrew Wambolt made it in with a Spiritomb Ultra Beasts deck. Michael Catron was the lone Dragapult VMAX player, and then Ilya Kornilov, I believe I'm saying that correctly, made it in with the Ultimate Mewtwo and Mew GX deck. We will be taking a look at all of these deck lists, but just want to take a moment to talk about the players that made it into the top 8. So the event did eventually end up being won by Takedo Seki. Takedo is a player who made top 4 at an earlier Limitless qualifier, made top 4 in the second qualifier, and also has 2 top 32 finishes at the Champions Leagues in Japan. Massive, massive Japanese tournaments. So obviously a very accomplished player over in Japan, not someone we maybe are familiar with as much on the west side of the world. Not a player that I think has ever had a Worlds finish, at least in recent years. So cool to see them taking down the tournament and getting the win, especially with a deck that was a little more unique coming into the event and not something that was super heavily played in the previous Limitless qualifier. Of course, ended up coming in and taking down the tournament. In top 8, Takedo was able to take down Justin Bukhari. Justin was playing Pikachu and Zekrom GX. Justin, of course, a 2-time regional champion just this season. Before, of course, things did end up getting shut down. Unfortunately, Justin was tearing it up, having a super, super solid season, and Pikachu Zekrom is a deck that he has known very, very well and played a lot of, so no surprise that he went with that for the event. The second seed coming into cut, an eventual runner-up of the tournament, was Azul Garcia Griego, also playing the Zacian V combo deck. Azul, probably one of the most accomplished players in the modern era of the game. Over $50,000 in tournament earnings, 5-time regional champion, and one of the biggest creators on YouTube and Twitch. I'm sure those of you watching this video are familiar with who Azul is. No surprise to see him making top 8 at this event and even taking it all the way to a finals. He was able to take down Andrew Wambolt in the top 8. Andrew playing the Spiritomb Ultra Beasts deck. This is definitely a more rogue deck coming into the event. The Spiritomb deck that had seen more success previously was the Arceus Dialga Palkia Spiritomb combo that Ross Coffin popularized at the very first Limitless online qualifier. Wamble mixed it up, took out the ADP, brought in some of the Ultra Beasts, and took it all the way into the top 8. I really, really like Wambolt's deck. We'll definitely be talking more about that soon. Moving on down the bracket, Eric Blad here played Zacian V combo, went up against Michael Catron in top 8. Michael, of course, playing that Dragapult VMAX. Michael was able to take down Eric in the top 8. Kosei, Sato, and Ilya Kornilov rounded out the top 8 for us, where I believe Ilya did end up winning. Nope, Kosei ended up winning. Sorry, missed that. Pikachu and Zekrom moving on to the top 4, and Mewtwo and Mew being left behind in the top 8. Kosei, a player who actually won a more recent Champions League tournament in Japan just in December, so very accomplished player as well over in Japan, making it into top 8 at this massive online tournament. And here we're taking a look at Takedo Seki's list, the list that they were able to use to win the whole event, of course taking down Azul, Garcia, Griego in the finals. And this is where I'm going to cover what Zacian Combo is, how this deck works, and what it aims to do. So it's called Combo because it aims to set up a specific combo and potentially set it up multiple times. Using Zacian V as kind of a draw early game with Intrepid Sword and as the main attacker with Brave Blade. We combo that alongside a Rangaroo with the Primate Wisdom ability. Once during your turn, you may switch a card from your hand with the top card of your deck. So the idea is to take Jirachi Prism Star, get it into our hand with something like a Quick Ball, and put it on top of our deck. Then using Mr. Mime from the Detective Pikachu set, Pantomime ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may switch one of your face-down prize cards with the top card of your deck. So we get to use that. Put the Jirachi Prism Star in the prizes. And the reason we do that is so that when we take a prize, we get to activate this Wish Upon a Star ability. If you took this Pokemon as a face-down prize card during your turn and your bench isn't full, before you put it into your hand, you may put it onto your bench and take one more prize card. So one of the things we can do here is just take 2 knockouts. Using Zacian V, we can knock out opposing 2 prize Pokemon, opposing Zacians, Dedenne GXs. Just bring them into the active very easily with the 3 Boss's Orders in this deck, or even the one of Great Catcher. And take 3 prizes on those Pokemon so that we can win in just 2 turns, theoretically. So that's the idea of Combozation. Of course, there were 3 of them in the top 8. This is the list that ended up winning it, Takedo Seki's first place list. And he did play a few interesting cards here that were not included in the other top 8 lists. We've got 2 Metal Goggles here. The Metal Pokemon this card is attached to takes 30 less damage from your opponent's attacks, and your opponent's attacks and abilities can't put damage counters on it. So this is really good against Dragapult VMAX, not being able to put damage onto benched Zacian V, and then also making opposing Zacian Vs not able to pick up the knockout with Brave Blade, giving us a little more HP, or making us a little thicker, harder to pick up the KO on. Another very interesting card included in Takedo's list was the 2 Sonia. Search your deck for up to 2 basic Pokemon, or up to 2 basic energy cards, reveal them and put them into your hand, then shuffle your deck. Using this mostly for the 2 basic Pokemon, I would imagine, makes it much, much easier to pull off the Jirachi Prism Star, Mr. Mime, and a Rangaroo combo, since now you only need 1 Quick Ball plus Sonia, and you can pull that combo off. Other tech cards worth mentioning for sure here, Mawile Gx with Captivating Wink. When you play this Pokemon from your hand onto your bench during your turn, you may have your opponent reveal their hand and put any number of basic Pokemon you find there onto their bench. So this is meant mostly as a counter to the Obstagoon deck. Galarian Obstagoon, of course, has the Obstruct attack, making it that basic Pokemon cannot damage it. So with Scoop Up Nets, ideally in this matchup, most Obstagoon players would try to get a lone Obstagoon with no other benched Pokemon, making it so that Boss's Orders is not able to pick up those KOs. Mawile's Captivating Wink allows you to bring those Pokemon down to the bench bosses orders them up and take knockout after knockout. So kind of giving you an out there. Wily Bite, solid damage output. Also a good attacker against any mill deck, since it does not need a turn to recharge like Zacian V does. And it's also a 2 energy attacker that can hit pretty hard. Can knock out one prize Pokemon to get that extra prize with Jirachi Prism Star potentially. Of course, we can utilize this combo multiple times thanks to Scoop Up Net. We can pick up the Jirachi Prism, put it back on top, pick up the Mr. Mime, do it all over again. So that's definitely something that these composition decks aim to do, and I'm sure Takedo did it many times on their path to victory. And this is the list that Azul used to make second place at the tournament. Of course, ultimately losing to Takedo in the finals. Same combo, same idea here, using Jirachi Prism. Azul did choose to play 2 Mr. Mime in his list. There's a few differences here, I think, that are worth highlighting. The one of Tapu Fini, maybe anticipating a baby Blacephalon meta. I know Azul said he feels very comfortable in that matchup, and the Fini is a big part of that. Azul also played 3 copies of Acrobike, giving himself a little more item-based draw, a little more consistency potentially there with the Acrobikes. Playing 1 less Boss's Orders, but in favor of 1 more Great Catcher. Great against anything that's going to be playing down Dedenne. Really what we aim to take prizes on most of the time. No Metal Goggles or Metal Frying Pan, but Azul's main tech, the thing that's not included in Takedo's list, was the Duskmane Necrozma here with Dusk Shot. 1 metal, this attack does 60 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon GX or Pokemon EX. Damage is affected by weakness or resistance. So this is key in the Pikachu and Zekrom matchup, letting us get that much needed damage onto those metal resistant tag team Pokemon so that we can pick up those KOs with Zacian's Brave Blade later on, because otherwise we're not reaching for enough damage in order to pick up the KOs. So that's really why the Duskmane made it into the list. I'm not really sure which list people will tend to favor. Takedo's, Azul's, both obviously are very strong. Maybe we'll see players opt for a blend of these cards, maybe including some Metal Goggles, maybe upping the Boss's Orders count. Maybe we'll see some Sonias making their way into certain lists, but I think that Zacian combo is definitely a deck you're going to see a lot more of. There was 1 Dragapult, of course, in the top 8. Michael Catron did end up making it into the top 4, and his list is definitely a lot different from those that we saw make top 8 at the previous Limitless qualifier. The biggest difference to me is the inclusion of 4 Crushing Hammer. Flip a coin if heads, discard an energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon, so allowing you to get a bit of disruption at certain times. Other big key things in this list, very, very low energy count compared to what we're seeing from Dragapult VMAX decks. Previous to this, most people were playing 4 Horror Psychic energies and 6 or 5 basic Psychics, but Michael cut that way down, only 7 total basic, or 7 total energy cards. And energy is very, very important in this deck because you need to get down to Dragapult turn 1, and you need to attach to it, especially if you're not playing the 1/1 Malamar line that we see from a lot of players. Michael, of course, also did not play any Marnie in his list, opting to play 4 copies of Cynthia. Not something that I think a lot of people would have expected to see. Marnie is a kind of a staple, it feels like, in most Dragapult and really just most decks in general at this point in the format. But Cynthia definitely still has value. It doesn't force you to put the cards in your hand on the bottom of your deck. So maybe if you have, an energy in your hand, you don't want to send it to the bottom of the deck because that means you can't draw it and get the attachment that you want on the certain Pokemon you want. So Cynthia can make sense for definitely certain situations. Also, one thing that we have to mention, kind of, is the inclusion of 1 Zamazenta V in the deck. Now, Zamazenta V is not in this list because it's good. It's in this list because Catron's friends bet him $50 that he would not, said they would give him $50, if he won the tournament with a Zamazenta V in his deck. So instead of playing a deck that Zamazenta could actually be utilized in, like, a Zacian combo deck, something like that, Catron was like, you know what, I'm just going to play Dragapult. I think it's really good. I think he played it to a top 32 finish in the 3rd qualifier just a couple of weeks ago, so wanted to rock out with it again, and just decided, you know, I'm going to play with a 59 card deck, basically. A one dead card that's not going to be useful. But, you know, if I win, I'll get $50. And he got so close. He got into the top 4, but was not quite able to close things out. But minus the Zamazenta, we'll definitely see a lot of players utilizing this variation of the Dragapult VMAX. Also, the 2 Power Plant and 2 Reset Stamp, very big cards here. Useful against things like Baby Blacephalon in order to plant plus stamp, shutting off the Oricorio ability, shutting off the potential for Dedenne to draw cards. Very good early against things like Pikachu and Zekrom to slow them down. Power Plant definitely is a strong card right now in the format. Now, there were 2 Pikachu and Zekrom decks that made it into the top 8. This is, you know, not very much of a surprise, I would say, to most people. People expected Pikachu and Zekrom to be a very heavily played deck heading into this event. It did have 4 top 8 placements in the last Limitless qualifier, also taking down a first place and finals finish in that qualifier. So, no surprise to see 2 more in top 8. The list that Justin Bukhari got top 8 with is very similar to the one that Kim Pobega used to win the previous Limitless qualifier, with a couple of changes, of course. But the list here we're looking at is the one that Kosei Sato used in order to get the top 4, and it's definitely a bit more unique. We've got Volkners here, which is something that has, of course, been very played in Pikachu and Zekrom decks previously, but has seen a bit of a decrease in play. More recently, it seemed like people were favoring researches with the tag call engine of Guzmahala and Mallow and Lana. Also, some other interesting inclusions here, or I maybe should say lack of inclusions, would be only 1 Dedenne GX. Typically, Pikachu and Zekroms have almost always played 3 Dedenne, sometimes 2, but Kosei cut it down to 1, only needing the 1 Dedenne GX to close out the top 4 finish on the weekend. Also choosing to play Jirachi with the Stellar Wish ability, probably one of the best cards in the format, honestly. We see it in a lot of these top 8. Actually, yes, Jirachi, except for the Mewtwo deck, except for the Mewtwo and Justin's Pikarom, it's in 6 of the top 8 decks from the tournament this weekend. So no surprise, Jirachi being one of the better cards. Making its way back into this Pikarom list is something that most players had opted to pull out previously. Now it's kind of made its way back in, so it'll be kind of interesting to see how things evolve. Will people choose to go more this route with Jirachis? I think this has a better, like, mid-game, maybe even a little better of, like, a late game against things like Power Plant and Reset Stamp, if that's something you are worried about. But is a little less aggressive early on, I would say. You can dig a little more turn 1, but it's maybe lacks a little bit of the like turn 1 consistency. I'm not sure. But Jirachi made its way back into the top 4 of this Pikachu and Zekrom list, so we'll see kind of what engine players opt to go with moving forward. And this is the Ultimate Mewtwo deck that Ilya Kornilov used to make top 8. Mewtwo, I think, is something that has been very successful ever since it came out pre-Worlds in the Unified Minds expansion, but really since Rebel Clash has kind of dipped off a little bit in play. It was still pretty good during the Sword and Shield meta, but hasn't seen quite as much play, and it seems like most people have been opting for this Ultimate Mewtwo build, as it is called. Of course, previously, Welder Mewtwo was the preferred version, but Ultimate Mewtwo has popped up once Henry Brand kind of popularized it after performing well with it in Australia, and Ilya was able to take it into the top 8 of this tournament. The idea of this deck is using Mewtwo's Perfection to copy Solgaleo GX's Soul Burst GX on turn 1 in order to search your deck for up to 5 energy cards and attach them to your Pokemon in any way that you like. So we can get out these special energies, flood our field with energy, and go from there utilizing any of these different attackers for whatever situation we want. Or in certain matchups, we can choose to go first and try to get a turn 2 Altered Creation and go that route if we want to try to steal extra prizes. Of course, Alolan Raticate using Chuck Away can pick up those knockouts on Jirachi even after resistance, thanks to the plus 30 damage from Altered Creation for, 0 energy, letting us take 2 prizes. That's pretty strong against one of the most popular Pokemon in the format. This deck is one that I have not spent nearly as much time with as the other decks, but I recognize it is very strong and has a ton of options. And typically decks that have lots of options like this in the hands of very skilled players will always go very, very far. And no surprise, Ilya was able to make it into the top 8 with this list. And the last list that we are going to be looking at is probably the one I'm most excited about because it's definitely the most unique, the most rogue deck coming into the event, and that would be Spiritomb Ultra Beasts. Now, Spiritomb combined with Arceus Dialga Palkia is something that has been very played in all of the previous qualifiers, especially after Ross Cawthon was able to take it to a top 4 finish originally. But combining it with Ultra Beasts is not something we have seen really much of yet. Of course, Spiritomb being a very strong one-prize Pokemon with the Building Spite and Anguish Cry, doing more damage for each damage counter on it. We can get a ton of damage on a Spiritomb almost out of nowhere thanks to the ability of Building Spite, thanks to Jinx's Ominous Posture, thanks to Rainbow Energy placing a damage counter as well. And then we also have these Ultra Beast Pokemon available to us in order to take advantage of very specific situations. Of course, Buzzwole, Sledgehammer, if your opponent has exactly 4 prize cards remaining, this attack does 90 more damage. Being a fighting type, that's very good against Pikachu and Zekrom, which is one of the most popular, if not the most popular deck in the format. And with Beast Energy, we can pick up one-hit KOs on some of the bigger Pokemon like Raichu, or even on a Pikachu Zekrom that has a big charm attached to it. We've got Nihilego here with the Nightcap attack. You can use this attack only if your opponent has exactly 2 prize cards remaining. Choose one of your opponent's Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So this is definitely a very powerful option for those specific situations. And then we have the Pheromosa and Buzzwole GX kind of as the closer if we need it, with Beast Game GX doing 50 damage. If your opponent's Pokemon is knocked out by damage from this attack, take 1 more prize card. So giving us that extra prize, very strong. And, you know, if we've hit something with a Spiritomb that hasn't quite gotten knocked out, or if we're able to get the Beast Energy onto Buzzwole and Pheromosa, we'll be doing 80 damage, which will knock out things like Jirachi, most popular card in the format, it seems, to give us 2 prizes on that, you know, 70 HP cheap Pokemon that's easy to pick up KOs on. I'm really excited to spend more time with this deck. I do think it is super unique, and huge congrats to Andrew for his finish. Congratulations once again to all 8 of the players that were able to find themselves in the top 8 of this event. Thanks again to Limitless as well for hosting such a great tournament series for us in these times where we're not able to go to IRL Pokemon events. It is very, very, very appreciated, and yeah, I'm sure everyone is happy to get to participate. I know I had a great time playing as well. If you guys are interested in supporting Limitless and also supporting me, definitely check out the information that I'll be linking down below about how you can vote for me in order to participate in the Limitless Invitational, which is what these players were trying to qualify for, coming up in just a few weeks. I would love to be able to participate, so if you played in one of the qualifiers and enjoy my content and want to see me playing in the Invitational series, please consider voting for me. That will be down in the description down below how you can do that. A lot of information about how you can make that happen. It's a great way to support me. I would love to get to participate, so I would really, really appreciate the votes. And if you don't vote for me, definitely vote for someone. There's a lot of great people that are going to be on that voting list, so I would definitely encourage you guys to pick someone, vote for them, but, you know, yeah, I wouldn't complain if you voted for me. So I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you so much for the support. Be sure to leave a like down below if you enjoyed, and subscribe to see more Pokemon TCG content. Guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm going to get out of here, and until next time, take care.